In our small island states, we value education and healthcare and the dignity of life. And therefore, it will be anathema for us to tell our citizens that we do not have the space to provide for you those things that were the promise of independence. It is compounded by the failure of the developed world to accept that reparatory justice is a solemn obligation which we must confront. The conversation King Charles told us at the opening of the Commonwealth Heads of Government when he was Prince Charles was a conversation whose time had come, that of reparatory justice. But it can't be a slow conversation taken up when people feel like. It has to be a conversation in which equal partners discuss. It cannot be an act of charity of those who simply feel that their conscience must be cleansed.
Hello everybody, welcome once again to AfriPost. I believe wherever you're watching us from, you are doing great. Now, today I want us to shift gears and head to the Caribbean. In the Caribbean, you know, there are many black people there. We have people in Jamaica, we have people in Barbados and different countries. So I want us specifically to focus on Barbados. One thing is happening there and it's really interesting. The first thing is that Barbados in 2021 November declared itself a republic. You might wonder, it is the newest republic in the world because it was under control of the United Kingdom, where Queen Elizabeth by then was the head of state. But then you must understand that the country is said to have had its independence in around 1966. So was it independent or not? Because how can it be independent and still have some white people ruling or controlling it? So that is a question that many people are still pondering about. But most Caribbean countries have their allegiance to the United Kingdom's monarchy. And right now it's the king. So that must be understood as it is there. I don't want to talk about how it attained independence or anything, but I want to look at what its Prime Minister, Mottley, is doing. Mottley has gone to United Kingdom with only one purpose, and that is to get reparations. She wants a whooping 4.9 trillion United States dollars. Yes, 4.9 trillion US dollars. And that is something that she has justified in different aspects to the United Kingdom government to show them that this is what you owe us. I know many of you are asking, how is it possible that 4.9 trillion US dollars can be claimed as part of reparations? But there is a company in United States called the Brattle. This company is specialized in calculation of complex calculations like those. So it has calculated the amount colonial masters owe their colonies. And in this calculation, United Kingdom stands to lead because, you know, it had many colonies. And therefore, it has to bear the brunt of these reparation calls. Now, according to the Brattle, United Kingdom is owing its former colonies 24 trillion US dollars. This is then followed closely by Spain. Spain is owing its former colonies $17.1 trillion. France, that you've heard recently in the news about its work in Burkina Faso, its work in Niger, its work in Mali and Togo and other countries, you can be told there that those countries are fed up by the European power in their countries, and they do not want any external force on their land. But according to these calculations, France owes former colonies around $9.2 trillion. Then now, the final country that is not worth mentioning is Netherlands, that owes close to 4.82 former colonies. So when Mottley comes with 4.9 trillion US dollars as the sum owed to them, she could be justified because she says that 450,000 people were carried out from Barbados and taken to United Kingdom. 10,000 of these people died through the sea while being shipped. 375,000 people worked without any pay under harsh conditions in different sectors of the economy and built the United Kingdom's economy to what it became later as we see it today. So she is saying that this is something that United Kingdom must pay.
I asked myself on Monday night, as we met to determine the halfway point of the SDG goals, how many roads we have to walk just to make it to the door, only to be told that the door is closed. Those are not my words. Those are the words of Rocky Dawuni, a famous reggae artist from Ghana, nominated by M4 for awards multiple times. But his words ring because in a very real sense, are we going to trod the roads only to be told that it's too late? Too late for us to save as many as we can from the climate crisis. Too late for us to save as many as we can from the conflicts of war. Too late for us to be able to provide the food that so many need, as we reflect on the fact that more people are likely to be hungry in this world in 2030 than in 2015, or as we get to the basic numbers that 735 million people suffered chronic hunger last year at a time when so many others had so much to throw away and to use. Are we going to be too late for the SDGs that are really the promise of development and the promise of the conferral of dignity on our people? We have today to determine what is the will of this body comprised of the member states to make the fundamental governance changes that will deliver in the third decade of the 21st century. Our world, as you know, is replete with issues. And I don't need to stand here and recount them in detail, for you have heard them in almost every speech delivered from this podium. But what is the issue is whether we can summon the determination that is required of us to make the changes that are appropriate to the age in which we live. Our democracy cannot survive if we do not have the same facts. But yet we live in a world where the generation of fake news is almost a daily occurrence, and where people act on those premises without consideration for whether the news is true or not. The role that artificial intelligence, generative artificial intelligence, will play in our world must be for good purposes and not evil. But if we are to ensure that is the case, then an appropriate framework for regulatory action must be put in place. We therefore support the actions of the Secretary General, recognizing that the question will come one day from some as to whether you sought to preserve our democracy or whether you allowed it to crumble, and whether you have failed us as individual citizens of the world. We ask that question, recognizing that AI is not in the immediate focal point of many, because the drama and the crises that surround climate is taking out all of the oxygen, literally, in the world. Those people who died in Libya recently were going about their business. They had aspirations. They had business that they were hoping to do, families that they were trying to protect. And in the flash of an eye, all of that came to an end. And not because we didn't expect it or anticipate it. The records of the multinational companies who are engaged in fossil fuels will show that they have always known for a considerable period of time the consequences of their actions. And while they themselves are not the immediate cause, the absence of technology to be able to limit what they are emitting is the cause. And by extension, therefore, they must take responsibility. We can go no further without an engagement of the oil and gas companies that is meaningful and credible, and we need to stop talking about it and just simply ensure that that kind of conversation can happen. But it is not just the oil and gas companies, and we have nothing against them. We do not want to bankrupt them. But their actions continue to have implications for too many of our people. Their actions are equally bolstered by what I call the fit group, the financial institutions, the insurance companies, and the transport companies. They get a buy or a pass because they are invisible to the transactions and to the activity that lead to the problems that the world is facing. But they too are as responsible and need to step up to the plate. The notion that we can preserve global public goods only with public money ignores the fact that we have seen for the last 50 years the absolute dominance of the capitalist markets leading to a consolidation of wealth, and hence the ability to be able to play their role must be summoned by the rest of us. We cannot continue to put the interests of a few before the lives of many. I ask us today truly to pause, because what keeps ringing in my head is that simple phrase, don't fail us now. Don't fail us now. And that phrase can come from that little boy or girl who is a victim of hunger, one of the 575 million people last year. That plea can equally come from those who lost families in the multiple crises across the world in the last few years. That plea can come from small states that may not exist in the future. I ask us, therefore, my friends, to ensure that we summon the will. We listened to the Prime Minister of the Netherlands just now, and he reminded us ably that time is not on our side. And if time is not on our side, what must we do? The truth is, we have made some progress. 2 years ago, the International Monetary Fund did not have a mechanism to focus on cause of the problems that led to massive macroeconomic instability. We now have the establishment of the Resilience and Sustainability Trust that for the first time will make funds available to middle-income countries that are vulnerable. 20-year money with a 10.5-year moratorium. A year ago, the president of the World Bank was questioning whether there was a climate crisis. Today, we have a World Bank that for the first time acknowledges that there should be debt clauses that are suspended, debt pause clauses as they call it. Our battle now is to ensure that those debt pause clauses are not just for future instruments, but for existing instruments. If not, it will not help many. So we have made progress, but there is still much to be done. The issues of debt sustainability cannot be left on the sidelines, particularly with the number of countries, more than 60 countries facing debt row today as we speak because of the polycrises. Countries being forced to choose between development and building of resilience to fight climate. In our small island states, we value education and healthcare and the dignity of life. And therefore, it will be anathema for us to tell our citizens that we do not have the space to provide for you those things that were the promise of independence. It is compounded by the failure of the developed world to accept that reparatory justice is a solemn obligation which we must confront. The conversation King Charles told us at the opening of the Commonwealth Heads of Government when he was Prince Charles was a conversation whose time had come, that of reparatory justice. But it can't be a slow conversation taken up when people feel like. It has to be a conversation in which equal partners discuss. It cannot be an act of charity of those who simply feel that their conscience must be cleansed.
Now, if you've watched her keenly, you can say and really confirm that she speaks with a lot of passion about this question of reparations. And that is why the other day she went to Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister of United Kingdom, And she's there also representing other countries. Remember, she was selected as the head of that aspect of reparations by Africa, by Caribbean, countries in the Caribbean, and also countries in the Latin America. So she's heading that organization because of her vocal and strong stance against activities of the colonialism in different parts of the world. She's been recognized as somebody who can go and face these Western powers and tell them to pay up for the wrong they performed in countries that are right now reeling from poverty and reeling from different challenges, as it were. I do not know whether she's going to succeed in her quest, because Rishi Sunak is somebody that is also very tough. There is one time in UK Parliament, House of Commons, that Sunak was asked to apologize for the acts of United Kingdom in other countries like Africa, other continents and countries like Africa, Caribbean, even in Latin America. But Sunak was adamant and said that is not a question that he wants to talk about. Take a listen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This month marks 23 years since the passing of the late, great Bernie Grant. In his last Prime Minister's questions before his death, he asked for an apology to the people of African descent, living and dead, for our country's role in slavery and colonialism. But since then, Prime Ministers and heads of state have only ever expressed sorrow or deep regret. These are not sentiments that are befitting one of the greatest atrocities in human history. And there's been no acknowledgement of the wealth that has been amassed, or the fact that our country took out the largest loan it ever has to pay off the slave owners and not the enslaved. So I want to ask the Prime Minister today if he will do what Bernie Grant asked all those years ago, what I have asked and what countless others have asked since, and offer a full and meaningful apology for our country's role in slavery and colonialism, and commit to reparatory justice.
No, Mr. Speaker. That what I think our focus should now be on doing is, of course, understanding our history in all its parts, not running away from it, but right now making sure that we have a society which is inclusive and tolerant of people from all backgrounds. That's something that we on this house, our side of the house, are committed to doing and will continue to deliver. But trying to unpick our history is not the right way forward, and is not something that we will focus our energies on.
From that engagement, you can be sure the payment issue is going to be a challenge, because 4.9 trillion US dollars is not something that United Kingdom's economy can afford to pay. So I believe there is a different way in which these countries are going to engage. But we are waiting to see how that question is going to pan out. So that is it. She's gone to seek this payment. I don't know whether she will get it, but that is something that is justified, and United Kingdom and other colonial masters must find a way of, if not paying, but apologizing and making it up to those countries that have suffered from their acts during colonial or even slavery times. That is it from me. Thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you for reaching us to 5,000 subscribers. That is a milestone that we've hit, and we really appreciate your contribution to it. Thank you. Let's meet in our next video. Don't forget to subscribe if you're a new subscriber.